Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show. Today, I got Darrell Thompson joining me in the Hanging Ron Johnson segment. Former Packer, former Gopher. So double-edged sword. We're going to talk a little bowl game. We're also going to talk about this Packers-Vikings game coming up. How important is it? Does the weather matter? Is this going to be a run game? We'll see what Darrell has to say about that. We'll talk about that next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm ready for this. Packers, Vikings on a Sunday. Got moved to prime time. 3:25 Central Standard Time, 4:25 Eastern, for those keeping track. And the Vikings have to travel to Green Bay. Well, the good thing about it being around 3:25, the sun will be out a little bit longer than normal of a noon kickoff. But then as it gets into those wee hours, 6, 7 p.m., those temps could drop. So where does this Vikings team go from there? What does this mean for this Vikings team? How important is this win? Because they're in the playoffs. There's a chance, small chance, to get the number 1 seed. There's also a small chance they end up in the 3 seed. But does it matter? Does 2 really matter over 3? 1, I get it. You get a bye, you get to rest. So 1 is very important. But if the Eagles win and you can't get it, how important is that? But 2 and 3, it's a toss-up because you might get the Packers, you might get the Commanders, you could get the Giants. At that point, which game matters more? I have an opinion actually on that, and it depends on who ends up in the 7th seed. Oddly enough to say, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But before we do, remember, Amazon Fire and Roku, there's an app now for Locked On Sports Minnesota. Just go to search Locked On Sports Minnesota, go to your search, add apps, go to Locked On Sports Minnesota, add the app right to your screen. You can jump on it anytime you want, and you can watch our shows or get all of our videos as well and go back and watch some previous segments. We've had Adam Thielen on. We've had Cam Bynum on. You might want to go back and check those out. Josh Metellus as well. Some good stuff there, people. But as I bring Sam Extraman, my producer, I got to talk about it. So, Sam, here we go. This is the biggest issue I have with the way the games are slated, I guess. Mm-hmm. If the Packers beat the Vikings and then the Packers win again, Commanders and Giants, as we talked about, and the Packers end up the 7th seed, I personally, and we know what Chuck Foreman said yesterday, I don't know if I want to play. I don't know if I want to play the Packers at 7.
I'm with you.
Like I think I would rather take on the Commanders or the Giants. I just do. I just feel like those are more winnable games than playing the Packers. Now, you will get the Packers at home, but you're getting Aaron Rodgers indoors. You're getting Aaron Rodgers with, and not to say he needs motivation, but you're getting an Aaron Rodgers who's been ayahuasca'd. He's seen the mountaintop. He's understood his purpose. And now he's just coming to be a gunslinger. And that's one of those guys. I can't remember the movie, but it was Mel Gibson, his dad. They were poker players. I know you probably haven't seen it because you don't watch movies unless it was after 1990. But there's a poker movie. It's not Rounders because that's with Matt Damon, John Malkovich. They're young poker players, kind of like new to it. It's Maverick. Maverick was an old poker movie, and so again, if you've seen, I don't know if have you seen Rounders, Sam?
I've seen Rounders.
Okay, you've seen Rounders. Thank goodness. Yeah. So you've seen Rounders. So if you liked Rounders, you'll really like Maverick because Maverick takes place in the olden times. Like it kind of set back to horses and boats with gas engines and all that stuff with coal miners. But and you don't know is his dad. Like it's him and his partner and a young lady as well traveling with them. And basically in the end, won't ruin it for you because watch, it's a good movie, but they're on this poker. The very end is like this whole big poker tournament they've been working up to, which is a ton of money. Like everybody puts in a lot of money. long story short, he ends up coming in being one of these great poker players. And so when you think about that, when you think about a chip, chair, and a chance, and that's kind of what it is. Maverick is like, I'm never out of the poker tournament. I can win the tournament at any time because I'm magic. Like as long as I have a chip, chair, and a chance, I can win this. And that's where I feel like Aaron Rodgers is. He's kind of a chip, chair, and a chance type of guy. Like he's a guy that as long as you give him one inkling of like, I can win this. And that's what I don't want to see. I don't want to deal with Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs because that just makes it even more of a tighter game. Giants Commanders as a 3 seed, I wouldn't mind it. I definitely wouldn't mind it because if the 2 seed is the 49ers, I feel like the Packers could beat them if they're the 7. Packers end up beating them. And I don't know if the NFL does this, if they reseed it once the winners come up. I think they do. Yeah. So if the Packers were to beat the 49ers, perfect case scenario, they have to then travel to the Eagles. And now the Eagles got to deal with the Packers. The Vikings can then go in and play Dallas or Tampa. I mean, come on now. Dallas or Tampa? That's not a bad way for them to have to travel to Minnesota. I don't think Dallas will do what they did before because this team is different from those two. Even the Eagles lost. They're different now. They know how to come back. They know how to fight through adversity. But I look at that, and you got Tampa and Dallas. And then let's just say Aaron Rodgers is on a heater, and he somehow beats the injured Jalen Hurts-led Eagles, where Jalen Hurts is going to try to grit it through and play, and he doesn't have it all. And that Packers defense is good. They are aggressive. They're playing in Philly, so playing outdoors for them is nothing. And then the Packers have to travel back to the Vikings for the NFC Championship. What better story could have been written in Kevin O'Connell's first season for Hollywood? The Packers travel to Minnesota for the NFC Championship game, and then the Vikings lose to the Packers. And now that would be the movie. That would be the movie. The Packers as a 7th seed go to the Super Bowl first time. They end up going over and beating, the Chiefs or the Bills or something. And then Aaron Rodgers retires. Like, I can see Hollywood writing that because there's always a point in Hollywood where you can't have a perfect ending. It has to be some tears from the fans watching the movie. And that would be the tearjerker where Kevin O'Connell loses his first season. Everybody assumed he'd win a Super Bowl. And then the Vikings never make it back again. No, I'm not going to ruin people's hopes and dreams.
Don't say that, Ron. Come on.
But that's where I do go with this. Like I don't really know if the 2 seed is as important because you as a 3 you get a home field, and then especially if it is a Packers in the playoffs type of situation. Like if the Packers beat the Vikings at that point, I don't know if beating the Bears is as important. But we'll get into that later. I did kind of tease. And you tell me your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Do you think 2 and 3 seed matter? I know 1 matters, but does 2 and 3 matter?
I think it does. I just have a lot of respect for San Francisco. And I think that the 49ers have won 8 games in a row. And if you want to slow them down, you got to get them in your building. I don't care if it's Garoppolo. I don't care if it's Brock Purdy. Their defense is so good. And their offense executes. They are a tactful offense. Kyle Shanahan is a wizard at drawing up successful plays that empower the quarterback, make life easy for them. The running game is great. I don't want to play San Francisco in that building. And maybe I'm still a little bit haunted by the 2019 playoff game where they went and got destroyed. But I don't know if I want to play Green Bay either, Ron. I mean, so that might be the one reason to get knocked down to a 3. Then you can play like New York again, which I think is probably a better matchup. Little history lesson. When the Packers won the Super Bowl with Rodgers, they had to win all their games on the road. Mm-hmm. They had to win at Philly, at Atlanta, and at Chicago to make the Super Bowl. So they have done it before. And I think Aaron Rodgers is not afraid of any road environment. So I'd be a little bit gun shy about that one.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I go. I mean, if I had to pick the order of teams I'd want to play in that 7th seed, I'm going to kind of rank them Commanders, Giants, and then the Packers. Like, I'd rather take on the Commanders again first, then the Giants, because the Giants weren't an easy out. That was a tough game. And then I'm going to go with the Packers, even though the Packers, that was one of their biggest wins as far as point total. I just don't see it happening that way again. Like, I just think the Packers have gotten better. Christian Watson has gotten better. Romeo Dubs has gotten better. Like when they played the Vikings early in the season, which I think we all kind of said that was the best time to play the Packers. Early in the season, playing the Packers when they haven't really gelled together yet. Honestly, I wish that game, and I don't know why the NFL keeps doing this. They do it every year. I wish that first game was in Green Bay because it is September. It is, early, and you do have warm weather in Green Bay. And then when it's cold, like now in January, then the Packers travel to Minnesota. Why not do it that way? Like, I don't understand why they keep doing the Packers first and then the Vikings second. It just doesn't make sense. Darrell Thompson brought that up as well, and we'll hear from him a little bit about that. But the Lions and Packers, back when he played, same thing. The Lions would be indoors early in September for the Packers, and then it's going to the Pack in January. And he's like, why are we doing this? We should be taking advantage of every indoor stadium we can in the winter. And I really do believe that, but I also get it. A Green Bay backdrop for New Year's Day. It is sexy. It is nice, but I mean, US Bank Stadium is no slouch when you talk about now what it's built, what it looks like on TV. I think it's one of the best videotaped stadiums when you do the lights and all the things you can do with it. It'll be New Year's Day. And then I wouldn't have had to, like, at New Year's Day, I'd have got to chill here, But I also, I don't mind road games sometimes because I get to be at home and watch them in the studio. So it is nice and toasty for us in the studio. We don't have to be outside. US Bank Stadium is our on-set deal. We're indoors, thank goodness. It's not Huntington Bank still, because that was freezing cold. But yeah, Sam, I think that's how I would rank it. And what I think is the biggest issue with this team is it's going to come down to how this Packers game looks. Now, if they go in and again, JJ has 210 yards, takes over the Calvin Johnson lead, they blow the Packers' doors off. Because the Packers look bad. If you look at some of these games, they look bad. The other teams just can't put them away. But if Aaron Rodgers making these mistakes, throwing interceptions, there's fumbles, and the Vikings just look really good, then I'm like, I don't care. Like, who cares what seed they get? But we'll get into that, because if they win or lose, I know when we talk in the Daily 3, there's some questions in there about JJ. So if they win the Packers game, what do you do with JJ in the week 18 game versus the Bears? If they lose to the Packers, so win or lose, win, what do you do with JJ? Lose, what do you do with JJ? And not just JJ. I mean, you got Kirk, you got Adam Thielen who needs a rest. You got Za'Darius that needs a rest. There's a lot of players you have to think about. Win or lose this Packers game, how do you handle it? Because if you lose, the number one seed is out. You can't get it. And I'm guessing you hope the 49ers lose, but we'll talk about that in the Daily 3. But coming up next, we got my man Darrell Thompson. I'm excited to have Darrell Thompson join me because it's bowl game season, and there are some pressing questions I need to get out of him about this bowl game. It is in Yankee Stadium, but there's a lot of consternation with Gophers fans about which bowl game they should have gotten. You saw the Guaranteed Rate Bowl last night. Wisconsin unfortunately won. 24. Oklahoma State is terrible. None of their players played. None of the Wisconsin players played. When I was watching the game, I was kind of confused. I'm like, who is this coach? And I'm like, oh, Luke Fickell. Most coaches coach their team to the end. No, this guy just jumped. Screw Cincinnati. I'm going to Wisconsin. I'm going to coach the bowl game. Like, how arrogant are you to not let Jim Leonard finish the season out? That, to me, was a slap in the face, but that's a totally different question. That's Wisconsin for you. But, hey, people, check out the Minnesota Football Party on Mondays and Thursdays. Get your Vikings fix with Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Braun, and Sam Ekstrom on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I do join it on Thursdays, so check that out. I always have a good take here and there and a good movie reference. I might even have to have a Lindsay. I got to find a way to bring Lindsay Lohan into the pod this week. I'll figure that one out because it's going to come to me. It always hits me. But we have a word from our sponsors.
I think up some good Daily 3 questions for Lindsay Lohan for sure. BetOnline.net brings you today's show. It is your number one source for sports betting trends, analysis, news, and everything around sports wagering. You can get all the lines for all the games. That's bowl season included. The Gophers are favored by 9.5 in the Pinstripe Bowl. Over under 41.5 against Syracuse. That's Thursday at 1 o'clock. Also, Vikings, Packers. Packers are favored in that game. Right now, it's by 3.5. Over under 47.5. Get all that data, all that news at betonline.net. They've also got sports podcasts there as well. Check it out on your mobile device. It's BetOnline, where the game starts.
Well, I'm glad I get Darrell Thompson finally joining me in the Ron Johnson segment. Hanging with Ron Johnson. And it's a big week. This is kind of a dual week yet again. Darrell Thompson, friend of the program. But you got the Gophers in Syracuse playing in the Pinstripe Bowl in New York. Darrell is going to head out to New York this week as well. But then you also have the Packers and the Vikings. Darrell Thompson, as you know, was drafted by the Green Bay Packers. Even though he is a Gopher and we love him for his Gopher hood, there's a lot of fans that can't get behind the Packer life. But you know what? The NFL is the NFL. Definitely a blessing. Glad to have Darrell Thompson join me. Darrell, I want to jump out there. You're headed out to New York. And everybody talks about, the Citrus Bowl, Florida, Texas, San Diego. I want to go to California. I want to go to Disney World. But then it's New York. When you think about the Pinstripe Bowl in New York City, what are your thoughts as a bowl bid?
You know what? I think it's an opportunity. I think that's the biggest deal for the kids. They get an opportunity to play another bowl game. They get an opportunity to have some fun. And we get to tour. But, do we want to go be on the beach? Do we want to be warm? Do we want to have a little opportunity to, catch some rays, walk around in some shorts? We certainly would. But New York is, I think about when I was a kid listening to hip hop and rap music growing up. I think New York, big city of dreams, and all those types of things. So it'll be a fun place, and we'll make the best of it. I also think about the New York Yankees. We're going to play, and I've never been inside Yankee Stadium, so to get an opportunity to go out and to be in Yankee Stadium to broadcast a game there, it should be a lot of fun.
And you are a broadcast partner of Mike Grimm. And from what I've heard, because I did the PJ Fleck show this week with Justin Guard, and then I'm also going to do a show tomorrow. We're doing a special PJ Fleck show / Gopher pregame preview tomorrow as well. And there's been rumors of Mike Grimm not being too happy with the baseball stadium because of where his booth is and calling the game from the end zone. How do you make sure to kind of keep Grimm ready to go when he's not used to his 50-yard line, perfect spot at TCF or Huntington Bank or one of those great football stadiums being in a baseball arena? How do you deal with that? Because I know Mike Grimm can kind of be in his own ways.
Hey, you know what? I tell you what, it is difficult. I broadcasted a few games. We broadcasted the bowl game last year from Arizona, and it was from the end zone. And we were trying to see what happens from the end zone. You do not get a very good view of what's going on. So I'm going to be with Grant, but we're going to do our absolute best to call the game. I was actually talking to my wife a little bit about it. I said, man, it is tough. She's like, oh, you poor guy. You got to go to New York, got to broadcast a game, et cetera, et cetera. It is challenging to call a game when you don't see one side of the ball very well. So yeah, the 40, the 50-yard line, the 35-yard line would be better than the corner of the end zone when you get to see the trainers and the doctors and the players that are out of the game. And then you can be really far away from the game when it goes the other side of the field. So it will be a challenge to call the game from there. But Mike and I will try to not talk about it very much, but it will be a challenge, and some of the games are going to get called from the monitor because that's all we're going to have a view of.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to have the TV on because we're going to have a little watch party, but I'm definitely going to have the K-Fan stream going on my Alexa because I can't wait for Grimm to kind of do one of the because I know he loves to just say whatever now because he understands people love when you guys just go after it and ad-lib it and just have fun with it. And I can see Mike Grimm saying, somebody scored. I don't really know who because they're so far away, Darrell. You know who it is. And then
we sure hope you know who it is. And hopefully it's us. Hopefully it's Mohammed Ibrahim. Hope we're calling number 24, scoring as early and as often as possible. But it's going to be a challenge. And they do. I mean, we'll riff. We'll have a good time with it. But it is cool. It's New York. Hopefully I'll get a chance to smoke a cigar out there tomorrow afternoon, night. Before the game, and maybe even after the game if we have a victory. So it'll be a fun place to broadcast the game. Anytime you're out in New York, it's always cool. It's always special, and we'll make the best of it.
And you know what? Speaking of New York, let's off script a little bit. If you're in New York, they're hanging out with the guys, bowl game, football around, superstars. It's just New York, so you could be in New York and run into anybody from Michael Jordan to Spike Lee to Jay-Z to Beyonce. If you had to pick a celebrity to run into in New York that's kind of whether it's your cigar bar, who would it be? Movie star, athlete, could be anybody.
There's not much question about it. For me, it'd have to be Spike Lee. You know, when I think about Do the Right Thing, when I think about just growing up as a young man, as a kid, seeing that movie, I think about Spike Lee and that hot corner that they were on and all the trials and tribulations that happened there. So if I bumped into Spike Lee, I'd have to take a photo with them hanging out there and maybe put it on my Instagram or my Twitter and say my trip to New York. Besides that coffee cup, I got to have one of those coffee cups they have in all those detective movies out there, the blue cup. I think that I have one of those cups of coffee. And if I can bump into Spike Lee and have a cigar, that'd be just about a perfect trip out to the big city of dreams.
Well, if the Knicks are playing, I'm pretty sure he's going to be in town. He's a big Knicks fan. So he's around. I know that's what I've heard as far as Knicks games go. Spike likes to show up around the holidays. So this is the time to run into him.
I might invite him over, like maybe if I tweet at him or Instagram, maybe he'll come out,
yeah.
It's early. It's a midday game. He can come out and say, you can come in the press box, you can hang out with us, I'm sure Grim will have plenty of comments. Mike has seen Do the Right Thing many, many times. I'm sure that he can, quote a lot of lines from that movie.
We might have to start that. We might have to start the Twitter fans, all the Gopher fans, to start tweeting at Spike Lee to just show up to Yankee Stadium around 1-2 o'clock, open a booth with Grim and Darrell, and just go after it. Just do what Spike Lee does, narrate the game as only Spike Lee could narrate. But looking at the game, you talked about Mo Ibrahim. He's only, I think, 50 yards away from the all-time leading rusher in Gopher football history. What is not only, where you stand in this, hierarchy of running backs, but what has Mo Ibrahim meant to not just the program, but the state of Minnesota?
Well, I think he's meant a great deal. He's proven his value, his toughness, his ability, and he's just been a tremendous running back. He's also been a tremendous person. He could have left. He could have, you know what? I'm cool. I'm done. The young man from Syracuse elected to not play in this game. He said, you know what? I'm going to NFL. I want to protect my legs. I want to save my ligaments. I want to live to play in the NFL. And Muhammad's like, no, I'm here for my squad. I'm here for my team. I'm here for the University of Minnesota. I hope people from the University of Minnesota and from the state of Minnesota realize, he could certainly opt out and say, you know what, I think in the best interest of myself and for the future of my NFL career, I've elected to sit out this game, and I'm going to let Trey Potts and the rest of the running backs have an opportunity to get ready for next year. And he's like, no, I'm going to finish what I started. Not only does he want to break the record, which congratulations, he's a great young man. I'm glad he's the one that's going to do it. But he also wants to go out there and represent his team and have one more victory in the maroon and gold.
And for a running back, let's get a little football. Let's get a little bit into the weeds on some football talk quick. Syracuse football runs a 3-3-5. For those that understand, that's 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 DBs. The problem with that is, of the 3 rushers, there's also 2 blitzers, and it's coming from any and everywhere. As a running back, 1 in pass protection, how hard is that to scan and try to figure out of these, I'd say 4 potential, 3 linebackers, 1 DB somewhere, potential rushers, but then also in the running game to understand angles, outside zone, mid zone, all that stuff of who actually is going to be double teamed, who actually is a second level guy. How tough is that for a running back to kind of figure out when you don't?
What is a running back like, Sitsi? Is a 3-man front. Give me a 3-man front every single day and let my 5 guys take on those 3 guys and roll up to the next level. Muhammad will read it. He'll find the double team. He'll hug the double team. Say, hey, wherever there's a gap, most likely there's going to be a double team right next to it, right? Either on the nose or on that tackle spot. So you get out there, hug that, and then you got to deal with that guy. That's what they said. Hey, you don't get to be a running back if you can't make one man miss. And Muhammad is a great running back because he can make one man miss. He can get small. He can wiggle a little bit. And then worst or best case scenario, he'll run over you. So, I mean, I think that as a running back, I like a 3-3-5. Let those little cute guys, Ron Johnsons, the Deckers, and those little cute receivers with the abs, and their shirts and their tails and their, the towels hanging around. Let those guys out there patty kick on the perimeter. Let the men do the work in the box. And Muhammad and the offensive lineman will be doing some work tomorrow. And I feel like Muhammad, not tomorrow, but on Thursday night. But I think he's going to have, this is a 150 to 170 yard game with the 3-3-5.
And when you look at their time of possession, and you see where they're at in time of possession as far as their defense is on the field for about 34 minutes a game. So they have not won the time of possession battle for probably what you're saying. Teams are able to run the ball on them and grind it out. Does this feel like a game that can be like, and nothing against New Mexico State, nothing against some of those, but this feels like a game where this is an offensive line, this is a running back group, that this game could be over by 4:00 because it's going to go so fast if they just keep the ball on the ground, and Ethan probably only has to throw it about 12 times. Do you think this could be that kind of game?
I do think that it could be that type of game, mainly for what you're talking about. We average 35 yards per game in time of possession. So we're going to have the game have the ball most likely 35, maybe even 40 minutes in this game. Wow. So they're getting a heavy dose of Muhammad, you get a dose of Trey Potts, they might get Evans, they might get some of the other younger backs who probably get an opportunity. They deserve it. They've paved the way, and they're going to have to take at least a little bit of a glimpse of them, because that's what the future is. So this is that type of game. Yeah, you're right. It could be over, but not say early, but that clock will be running. And, and that's also Coach Fleck and Coach Schrock's playing, run it, play action, fake like you're not going to run it, and still hand the ball off again. So, I think that it'll be a heavy dose of running Thursday night or Thursday afternoon.
And last one before we jump into a little NFL talk, Tanner Morgan, elephant in the room. I saw him at practice. He was practicing, but it looks like Ethan's getting the number one stuff. He's going to be the guy out there starting it off. They kind of already alluded to that. It's going to be Ethan's game. PJ did say if Tanner's cleared and they feel like they can get him out there, he will play in this final game as a Gopher ever, winningest quarterback ever. But they also understand that Ethan can sling that rock, and he is the future of this program. How tough is that if you were in PJ's position? How tough is that when you have a guy like Tanner who's meant so much to the program, who's meant so much to just, PJ himself, one of his first quarterbacks, to follow him from Western to Minnesota, kind of stuck by him, even though, started off wasn't going to be the starter until injury. When you look back at the quarterbacks before Tanner, what is that? How tough is that to see a guy like Tanner not be able to go out on his own terms?
I think it's tough, but it's also just it's the game, Ron. Yeah. I think about, the injuries for you, for me, for other players, for Tanner. He's done a lot for University of Minnesota. He's a tremendous quarterback, as you talked about, one of the winningest quarterbacks we ever had in the history of the program. And he is a little bit like Coach Fleck's son. He's almost a reflection of him. He's tough. He's gritty. He's a tiny bit undersized. He's a little bit of overachiever. And you got the young gun just kind of sitting, waiting in the wings and all, shined up, polished. He can run, he can throw, but he doesn't know everything that Tanner knows. I mean, if you know everything, Tanner said he's seen the coverages, he's seen the fronts, he's seen all those things. I can make adjustments. He's like, Ethan's going to make sometimes a mistake, but he's also going to be able to do things that Tanner can't quite do. He said Tanner can't quite make the plays with the legs. He can't quite push the ball down the field as hard as Ethan can push the ball down the field. Can he make the right read and right situation and throw that slant route? Can he throw the out? Can he throw the comeback? Yes. But Ethan gives you a little bit more, and that's just kind of part of the future. I mean, eventually you got to pass the torch, and I think that Tanner has certainly passed the torch to Ethan.
And when you think about PJ Fleck, got an extension. And for people that don't understand, it was really just $1 million extension. It wasn't nothing drastic or anything like that. They added 1 year to his contract. We asked PJ this on the PJ Fleck show. He said for him, it's just like it's what happens nowadays. You just keep keeping the coach around and hope that that's the coach that's going to be long term. It adds value to the recruiting. It adds value to the relationship of the program. It shows the program is really serious about him being there long term. What does that mean when you look at, and you're a dad that has that have sons and have had daughters playing college sports with coaches, whether they thought about transferring, whether coaches get fired or leave or whatever, you've been a part of this whole college world with kids. But how important is that for the parents at home, knowing they're sending their kids to PJ Fleck to say, okay, he's going to be there for at least 7 years unless something crazy happens?
Well, I think it's a big deal, probably more important to the people that he's recruiting. I mean, I remember the recruiting process for myself and with my kids, you're like, is this guy or woman going to be the coach for my daughter or for my son? That's really, really important. Is he peeking around, looking at other jobs and other opportunities? It doesn't feel like PJ's doing that. So for them to extend him and also just kind of quell some of the negative recruiting that does go on out there, like, oh, you don't want to go there. They don't even know if that's going to be there. He's a carpetbagger, those types of things. Yep. So see, no, I don't believe PJ is a carpetbagger. I believe he actually wants to be here. He wants to build a legacy here. He's got a home here. He's got a family here. He's got a wife here. So I really feel like he's here for the long haul. So I think it's a benefit for the university, and it doesn't really, $1 million is a lot of money. But,
Yeah.
in the college football coaching landscape, it's like getting the 10% raise. Hey, good job. You get your bonus in the year. We hope things go well next year. You go, well, we'll really kick you up a notch, because, he'd like to be in the top, 2 or 3 coaches. And, you win a few more games. We win that Iowa game, win a few more games. You're like, hey, then he can be in that upper tier. He's really not that far away. And he's built the program to where he's built it. And we hope that he continues.
And you grew up here. There's a question that's been floating around on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Definitely the Ron Johnson show, and we had a couple other shows brought this up. You talk about we're going to transition to the NFL a little bit. You played in the NFL. You grew up in Minnesota, though, so you understand Minnesota sports from a pro and college standpoint. Is Kevin O'Connell one of the most liked early coaches? And I know winning is a big part of it, but does it feel like Kevin O'Connell is one of the most liked early adopted coaches into Minnesota sports, the family, I guess you want to call it?
Absolutely. And I think winning, I think Barry Alvarez said it best. He said, winning is the best deodorant you can have. Kevin O'Connell, he's a good looking guy and all that good stuff. But I said, hey, when you win, you can look like, Winnie the Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh, be on the front page of the Wheaties box, and he'll be, on Sports Illustrated. So the fact that he's winning, he also has a new, he's part of the new coaching philosophy of, I'm not going to beat my guys down. I'm not going to scream at them, holler at them, curse at them. I'm trying to build people up. I'm trying to help people. And I like a lot of what Coach Fleck does. I say, what, actually it's good. What's wrong with telling somebody that they're great? What's wrong with telling somebody I believe in you? What's wrong with telling somebody, you know what? I know we're down by 5 touchdowns at half, but all we need is 5, maybe 6 touchdowns. We can win this game in the second half. We go out and win it. So, I think that, it's a good he's a great fit for the Minnesota Vikings. He's probably maybe the best coach we've had since we had Bud Grant. And that's saying a lot.
That is saying a whole lot.
Yeah.
When you look at this playoff run, the Packers could be the 7th seed. If they win a couple games, they could get in that 7th seed. And then the Giants, I think Commanders have to lose, which probably will happen. The Vikings can ruin the Packers season, though, by beating them. When you look at this opportunity, one for Aaron Rodgers, who may or may not come back, but has a chance to kind of make sure the Vikings know, hey, I still own you. But then also have a chance to play them again to the 7th seed. Has there ever been a time where you felt like the Vikings were on top and the Packers were kind of mid-range, but people still felt like the Packers were better? Because right now, Vegas has the Packers as a 3-point favorite going into this weekend. For a 12-3 team to be traveling to a team not even in the playoffs and to be underdogs, which has happened time and time again this season. Have you ever seen anything like that in pro sports?
You know what? Not very often, but I can see why. And I see the Packers have a history. They have a legacy. And one thing that dome teams don't like or indoor teams don't like is going to play when it's 10 degrees, 12 degrees, 3 degrees. You're outside. You can say, oh, it's tough, and you'll go out and warm ups and have your shirt off and all that type of stuff. So, well, it's a lot different when you go out there and play for, 60 minutes. You got to stand there on the sideline. And they got heated benches and seats and helmets and hand warmers. I said, but it's different. The climate's different. The temperature's different. The ball comes out different. And it's uncomfortable. And there's not really anything like, a Cleveland, a Chicago, Buffalo, or certainly not Green Bay with the hostile environment and the cold weather and that wind whipping through that stadium. It's not, and I was a Packer. I didn't really like it. And I talked to one of my buddies on another team, Benny Blades. I said, why do we play you in December in Green Bay? And then we play in Detroit indoors when, it's like, I don't know, like November. Or September. So I know it's one of the wonders of the world, but it works, and it'll be exciting. It'll be an exciting game regardless, but it's for all the marbles, and dome teams don't typically do well in the cold.
And when you look at a cold weather game like this as a running back, I know you salivated this when you think about Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Dalvin Cook, and Alexander Mattison, 4 of really good backs in the NFL. When you think about cold weather games, though, and the Packers, we know that's why they drafted Dillon and didn't draft a receiver. Aaron Rodgers at the time was pissed off, but now he probably is like, okay, I get it. Running the ball is important. The 49ers are doing it. But then you see Kevin O'Connell come in, and I looked it up. 2020 to 2021, the Vikings offense was about 50-50 run to pass. Now the same stats, first and second down is kind of what I looked at, because those are third down is it's usually a pass, but first and second down, the Vikings are 50-50. Now the Vikings are, I think, right around 792 till about 299. It's definitely 2-1 run to pass on first and second down. Now passing heavier. But when you think about a running back like Dalvin Cook, if you were the running back in this situation, how would you make sure that you stayed involved in the offense, knowing it was a passing situation or this is a passing type of offense? Like, how do you go to coach, or, do you stay after for practice and work on some routes? Do you say, hey, coach, line me up out wide? But without feeling like, eventually they're just going to get rid of me.
I think you got to lobby for it a little bit. I also feel like, a coach, and Coach O'Connell's smart. He's kind of smart like a fox. He's kind of, kind of ho-hums his way. He's smiling around the sideline. He's also willing to get in somebody and talk a little bit. But I feel like when you play in these type of temperatures, it's the running game is important, because passing games get out of sync. Guys lose their footing at the line of scrimmage. They lose, run that slant, you slip a little bit, then the ball hits someone, goes in the air. Next thing you know that, someone else, it gets bobbled, it gets tipped, or it gets intercepted, worst case scenario. So if you can get a team out of sync, be really, really aggressive at the line of scrimmage, because I'm telling my corner, hey, you know what? Get that chuck, get that jam. Don't let that guy just come off all comfortable and run his little cute route. I said, you let him know where you're at all times, and put them in long yardage situations, and then they've got to, continue throwing the ball. So you have got to lobby, and O'Connell knows that. He knows more about football than you and I probably put together. So I mean, he's got to have his game plan, and Dalvin Cook needs to be a little bit more of a priority this week if they're going to come out successful in Green Bay.
Yeah, and then last one, going back to New York City. When you think about the Gophers, and I know you don't have your keys yet, but when you think about the Gophers Syracuse, what has to happen in this game in order for the Gophers to walk away victorious? Because PJ right now is undefeated in bowl games at the University of Minnesota. So what does he have to do to walk away again with a victory?
Well, their running back's not playing, and their quarterback is second leading rusher in the game, and he's accounted for 24 total touchdowns on the behalf of Syracuse so far this season. And he's a very good, big, athletic Josh, type the quarterback they got in the Buffalo Bills. He's kind of in that mold. He's a college version of him. He's physical. He likes to run. He likes to play action. He throws pretty good. They got a nice tight end they throw the ball to a lot as well. But stopping the quarterback, being physical with him, and not going for the play fake. I'm a big fan. He said, you know what? I accidentally robbed the quarterback's cage. Put your shoulder pads and helmet in his rib cage a couple times when he decides he's going to run, and make it the running back that's going to start has 26 carries on the season. So that's he's not used to carrying that type of workload. He's going to get in the bowl game. He'll be fine. I'm sure he's thrown for a touchdown. He's successful. He's sure he was all state or all something when he came out, but it's different, playing on Saturday than it is playing on Friday night. As we know, it's different playing on Sunday as well. So I think that the main key is to stop that quarterback, get around him, get him out of sync. And, if he tries to run the ball, make sure you wrap him up and bring him down.
Well, there you have it. Yep. Garrett Schrader, we're coming for you. 6'4", 6'5", 230. So, and this is the thing people don't understand. When you look at positions like quarterback, it says 230, but by this time in the season, he's probably about 235, 240, because he's had some food. He hasn't worked out as much. Quarterbacks don't run as much as they do in the summer. Receivers, running backs, their weight usually stays about the same. Quarterbacks, they usually gain a couple lbs, and so he's more like 235, 240 right now. But he is a big load. He does run the ball well. And with their running back out, as you stated, he's going to be the one to get the ball. So, yeah, Tyler Nubin, keep your eye on him. It's going to be a good one. Absolutely. I want to thank Darrell Thompson for joining me in the Hang Around Johnson segment. Coming up next, we got the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Got a little special treat for you. We got Sam Ekstrom, myself, and we got a little guest joining us this week on the Ron Johnson Show. Stay tuned for that. And if you want endless Vikings talk, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube, where you can find all of our videos, all of our shows, instant podcasts after every game, and the Vikings press conferences delivering all the biggest news. Like our videos and leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And we have a word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Ron. We appreciate you listening to the Ron Johnson Show as your first listen today. Hey, how about for your second listen, you check out Locked On Sports Today, where you get team insiders bringing you behind the scenes with the biggest stories in sports in 20 minutes or less Instant reactions, game recaps, Locked On's Take of the Day. It's Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Time now for Luke Inman in the Daily 3. And we've got a hot topic to start. Now, we brought this up on the Minnesota football party yesterday, generated a lot of discussion. I want to see what you guys think. If Week 18 means nothing for the Vikings, 1 seed out of play, locked into the 2 seed, would you sit Justin Jefferson if he's close to the record? Maybe he doesn't have a good game against the Packers. Maybe he's too far away. But what if he's close? Would you sit him? Would you play him? Our guest, Luke Inman, will give you the first crack.
Yeah, tough question. As hard as it would be to rest the guy with NFL records on the line, I think it's so tough to justify playing my superstar, blue chip, face of the franchise player. If you're telling me, Sam, that it's a meaningless game, knowing full well I need him healthy and 100% ready to roll for the playoffs just a few days later. But having said that, I really think when you look at these scenarios, the good news is for the people who want to see him go break these records, I can almost guarantee you that Week 18 will not be a meaningless game, because regardless of what happens with the Eagles in that 1 seed, the Vikings now have to worry about the Niners, who are only 1 game back in the 3 seed, leapfrogging them because they own the tiebreaker, which is conference record. And given the Niners scheduled these last 2 weeks, think about it. The Raiders, they're out of playoff contention. The Cardinals, also out of playoff contention. Ain't no way they're losing those games, which means the Vikings have to win this week and next week in almost every scenario you go through to make sure they keep that 2 seed in place. Because as bad as going into Philly would be in that NFC Championship game, I can promise you going into San Fran would almost be equally as tough. You do not want to go into San Francisco with all those bad memories, what happened in 2019 when Kirk and company got ran out of town. Not to mention, I think the Niners are just playing with house money right now. They look like the best version of themselves they've been all year. We know the defense led by D'Amico Ryans. He'll be a head coach next year. It's just an absolute powerhouse over there with Nick Bosa at home. I just want nothing to do with it. So I can almost guarantee you we will see JJ and the starters Week 18 doing everything they can to win that game. And at the same time, we'll see if he can break some of these NFL records along the way, which is going to be a lot of fun just to watch unfold throughout that last game. Quick question here for Ron. He's a former wideout in the NFL, Gophers Hall of Famer. We all know it. Which record, Ron, is more impressive to you? The 2,000 yards receiving record by Megatron or the Michael Thomas's reception record? I think it's set at 149 catches. Which one, just as a former wideout in the league, most impressive? And I guess a harder feat if JJ could only break one of those.
I'd say the yards. The yards to me is more important than catches. Catches, you can feed a guy. I mean, if you think back to the Michael Thomas year 2 as well, it was a ton of one-step hitches. It was a ton of slants. It was a ton of quick stuff from Drew Brees. And not to say that wasn't part of their offense, but that was part of their offense. You don't see Kevin O'Connell having Kirk Cousins look over, come up, and just throw a dart to JJ right now. Because some people call it a now route. Like literally, you put your foot in the ground once. You don't even. It's not even a step really. It's just one pound. Boom. It's an arrow route, dart route, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it a now route. But you're just coming down the line flat. Not really a slant. You're just coming down flat because you know whether the backer is so far over he can't help, and you have a lot of field. You're on the opposite hash, and then you're just giving it to your receiver, moving full speed in. And now if he can, either outrun the corner chasing, or he can stiff arm him, or just get you 4 or 5 yards. And Michael Thomas did it. The yards, that one's tough because you can give somebody, you literally can just throw the ball to JJ 50 times in a game just to give him a record. Like, hey, I'm going to throw you out. I'm going to throw you a quick out. Just keep doing it. And then you give him 50 catches or 20 catches in a game. That to me is more impressive if the yards. My answer to this though, quick, JJ, Week 18, it's all about the playoff picture to me. But honestly, I like where it kind of was brought up there by both of you. Where is he at when it happens? Like, does he have a good game against the Packers? Because if he's 180 yards away from it going into the Bears, I don't know if you face that giant. Like, I don't know if you try to, take care of that. But if he has like 130 against the Packers and now he's about 100 and some away, I play him. I think I play him. And so when you look at the playoff picture, though, the Commanders are 7-7, the Giants are 8-6. In the hunt, you got the possible. We keep forgetting because we keep saying we keep saying Packers, but the Lions. If the Lions beat the Bears this week, and then the Lions also win next week, and I think they have the Packers, they could be in the playoffs. And then if you look at Seattle, they play the Jets. They could be in the playoffs. So even if I'm looking at the Seattle Seahawks, Lions, Packers, and the Commanders, because I think the Giants at 8-6, they have the Colts. They'll probably win that, so they're probably safe. But the Commanders, Seahawks, Lions, and Packers all could make the playoffs. That's crazy. That's really crazy. And right now, the Lions have the tiebreaker over the Packers. So that would be even more interesting if the Lions are hoping now the Packers lose to the Vikings. But if I had to pick between even Seahawks, Lions, Commanders, I think I want the Commanders. I don't want the Seahawks or the Lions either. So I think that's going to be the key for this is where are they at in the playoff hunt? What happens in this Packers game? Do I rest JJ or not?
Can you imagine Week 18 Lions at Lambeau versus the Packers? One of them winning in, one of them you lose, your season's over. But, I mean, nobody ever thought at the beginning of the year that this was even a possibility that we would be in this situation, that one of these two teams winning in last week of the season. Lions, are you kidding me? Versus the Packers, who are obviously struggling compared to expectations before the season. Pretty wild to think about.
Yeah. Yep. And real quick, to Luke's point, it's unlikely that the Eagles win, the Vikings win, and the 49ers lose. That's the only scenario where Week 18 means nothing. Odds are there will be seeding possibly at stake. Moving on.
49ers beat the Raiders for sure.
Yeah, feels that way. Although it is on the road, and the Raiders might, take a lateral pass and intercept it for a touchdown to win. I don't know, something crazy like that. Gophers bowl game Thursday afternoon. It looks like Ethan Kaliakmanis probably going to be the starter for the Gophers. And I think we weren't really sure which way this was going to go. We thought maybe one last ride for Tanner Morgan in a Gophers jersey after all that he's given the program. Do you agree that Kaliakmanis is the right man to start this game against Syracuse, or do you think Morgan should have gotten one final start? We'll go with the former Gopher, Ron Johnson.
Yeah, I do think Tanner should get to play. I don't think about starting, though. This is the problem. Ethan Kaliakmanis has earned this spot. Like, everybody knows he's the future of the program. Darrell Thompson brought up just like what football is about. And if you want to go back and watch that, but, layman's terms of like football is injuries happen. And so it's not one of those things. It's not the storybook ending. Again, another Hollywood type of movie. That would be great to watch, like the star player having to like sit out his very last game ever, being the winningest quarterback in Gophers history. And that could be a movie because then you want to see what happens next. Does he go on to become an offensive coordinator? Does he go on to become a head coach? And, 30 years from now, he's rowing the boat somewhere because he's, PJ Fleck, took the oar and, hit him on each shoulder. And he said, you know what, you've been knighted. You can have the row the boat wherever you go, Tanner. And so Tanner takes the row the boat with him because PJ has allowed Tanner to borrow it. But it's one of those things where Ethan Kaliakmanis has earned this. I'm pretty sure because PJ Fleck brought this up on the PJ Fleck show that, they're going to try to get Tanner in there if they can, but it's also about the medical staff. Like if he's not cleared to go in, you can't do it. So I think if you want to win this game, they're 9-point favorite. I would put my money on that favorite. I think they can win by 10. Darrell Thompson brought up the 3-3-5 and what a running back sees. Hey, I think this is a recipe for Mo Ibrahim walking off into the sunset with maybe a 200-yard game on the ground, solidifying his draft status.
Luke?
Yeah, I mean, Ron hit on a lot of good points. Not a ton to add. I mean, heck of a ride for Tanner, man. Who's kidding who? Not many collegiate players get to be cemented in their team's quarterback role for as long as he was for the Gophers. And I think everyone's always going to appreciate what he did for the program and Coach Fleck as he kind of first started to get this whole thing off the ground his first few years. It was a lot of fun to watch collectively, that body of work he put together. But I think the show's over, fellas. It's Ethan's time now. Ron said it best. He's earned it. And if you want him to be the best quarterback he can possibly be, then he needs every rep, every snap, every read he can get in and outside of the huddle. And there's just no better way to earn that valuable experience than actually playing the game. Not to mention being able to play in his first bowl game, no less. I think it's just so important to his development, his progression as a quarterback to play in a game of this magnitude under the big atmosphere and the energy and the pressure. Even if it's not the biggest bowl game in the world, to some, I get it. It still means the world to a lot of these players and coaches. And as much as I think, we'd all love that, what Tanner has done. I think even he knows it's probably time to pass the keys over to Ethan, give him much as support as he possibly can, and let him grow again, just into the best quarterback he can be for 2023 and beyond. Because I just think win or lose, Ethan can grow so much from starting and playing in a bowl game like this, given where he's at in his young career with such little experience under his belt. I really do. Ron brought up a great point, though. The dream scenario, you're up 2 possessions, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You can sneak Tanner in there just for a little bit of, nostalgic sake and just a little a farewell to the crowds over the Gopher fans there. That would be a great ending to kind of ride out in the sunset for Tanner, I think.
10 seconds. Ron, does Tanner Morgan spend training camp with an NFL team next year?
Ooh.
I don't think so. I think he might spend OTAs. I'm not sure he makes it to training camp. That's just me personally, especially with the injury. Who knows how serious it really is, and that's what we don't know.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah. I think he does. I think he maybe not training camp like Ron said, but I think he's on a roster at some
I think
point.
somebody picks him up.
I think he definitely has practices as an NFL quarterback. He puts on the jersey. All right, last one. Rudy Gobert, guys, got benched in the fourth quarter at Miami. Now, this was a Miami team that didn't have anybody. Their bigs were hurt. Jimmy Butler was hurt. They had a small lineup, and Rudy Gobert was supposed to dominate them. But they benched him in the fourth quarter for Naz Reid, and the Wolves lost that game by 3 in a road game they should have won, needed to win. Are the Wolves officially in crisis mode, Luke Inman?
Yeah, you know me. I usually plead the fifth because you two are more of the NBA savants than me. But just to my surface level, average basketball mind, the Wolves are in serious trouble any way you look at it. I mean, you trade the farm, mortgage the future for a guy who just never really fit the identity, I guess, of this NBA small ball in the first place. And now you can't even find court. He can't even find the court full time. I mean, make matters worse, too. I've been thinking about this. Backup Naz Reid looks not only better than him, but he's been here the whole time. So it's not like he didn't know how good Naz could be if given the opportunity to see the court in a larger role. And then just to pour a little bit more salt in the wound, I see Walker Kessler out here, who you traded away for Rudy, just ripping it up as a rookie defender, averaging a couple blocks a game. It's bad news Bears right now, guys. I mean, I'm not sure what good solution there is or how they can spin this, I guess, in a way that they can at least just salvage the pieces when this is all said and done. I just don't. I guess my question for you guys, is Rudy playing so much worse than he did last year? Like, I see the box score. He's averaging 10 points, 10 boards a night. What did he average in Utah last year? What kind of player statistically did we think we were getting? Or is this more about the defensive player we thought we were getting? And he can't do that either.
Yeah. John Krasinski had a good article about this and The Athletic, and he's down a couple points, couple boards, and I think most concerningly, he's down about a block per game, which is pretty noticeable. All around, he's down.
And this is where I'll go with it. I think they are in crisis mode, but they're in crisis mode because of themselves. Like, I think they put themselves in this position when you look at it, and that's what I was looking at. When I see a question like this, now it's 29 games played compared to last year's 66 and the year before that 71. He's always been a 14, 15, 16 point type of guy. So not big numbers. So, he's at 13.9 compared to 15.6. In my opinion, that 1 point is nothing. Mm-hmm. You look at his field goal percentage last year, 71%, this year 66, but in the past, when he had Donovan Mitchell, you look at, he was a 66.9, a 69.3. So again, not a huge, like, you can kind of say from year to year, 21 to 22. Yep. That's a big jump, and not getting as many dunks. But he got a ton of alley-oops from Donovan Mitchell. If you think about it, the game I watched with the Dallas Mavericks that I went to, the drive and feed from Edwards was awesome to see. And I was like, why don't they do that more? Well, you can't do that more because Cat's in the lane sometimes too. Rebounds is a big one. Almost 15 rebounds a game last year, now at 12. That is big. Like, what's going on there? Why isn't he carving out more space? Has he lost his aggressiveness? And then the blocks, I think that's another big one. He almost averaged 3 blocks a game in 2020, and now he's at 1. So again, is it that he's not being able to be in the lane because of who he's guarding? Are teams figuring it out that now they're like, you know what? And I say they just are figuring it out, but more teams have gone to the 3 ball. And so they're taking Rudy Gobert out of it. It's not like he doesn't want to block shots. Is he not getting the opportunity to block shots? And so like you said, when they go small ball, nobody's driving on them. Those guys are all pick and pop guys. These guys are all going to shoot mid-range elbow jumpers. And so on the offensive board, yeah, you should take advantage and kill it. But then if I shoot a 3 and you shoot a 2, I'm going to win. And that's what teams are doing. And that's why I joked about like trading Gobert or trading. I don't know if the Warriors would do it, but I would trade Cat for Clay. Like I would say, hey, I'll give you karl-anthony Towns. You give me Klay Thompson. You have a big with Steph and Wiggins and Poole, because Poole, Klay, and Steph long term, I don't think it's going to work money wise unless Steph and Klay are willing to take less. But we know Klay wants a big payout. He wants to be considered one of the best shooters, which he is. So I think it's a little bit of crisis mode. I think it is because Rudy Gobert's production is not there, and so you got to figure out a lineup that works for him. But I want to thank Luke Inman for joining us on the Daily 3 today. I want to thank Sam Ekstrom for producing the show. I want to thank Darrell Thompson. Great stuff there. Looking forward to this bowl game. I'm going to be listening to K-Fan because I got to hear the radio of Mike Grimm struggling to call the game from the end zone. Darrell Thompson said as well, it is tough. We have to go to the TV copy. So if the TV cameras aren't helping them out, Lord help them, because it's going to be fun to listen to Mike Grimm kind of get a little bit pissed off when he can't see who just scored or who is that. What is that, a 1 yard line? Are they on the 2 yard? Did they score? What happened? You know, like Mike Grimm's not going to be himself like he normally is when he's kind of on the 30-yard line at Huntington Bank Stadium. But I'm Ron Johnson. Again, that's Sam Ekstrom. That's Luke Inman. I want to thank you guys for joining. And remember, people, Amazon Fire and Roku, just download those apps to your TVs. You can get all of our videos, all of our shows anytime. You can just go on your TV and watch us. And also, Locked On Sports, we have a bevy of shows. We got the football party on Mondays and Thursdays. Check that out as well. And we always have a great guest on the Ron Johnson Show in the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment. So please go back and watch previous episodes and subscribe. When you get on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. And then you'll get all the alerts every time we upload a new interview or a new video. I want to thank you guys and have a great day.